Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of The Truth Is Here. You are watching the Mahdi Has Appeared TV. You can see a number on your screen. Please feel free to call us. It is free on Telegram and WhatsApp. All you on social media, God bless you all and thank you for joining us. Just remember to keep it clean and respectful. If you are interested in getting involved in a chat conversation about what we're talking about. So I'm joined by my epic brother Waqar.
Thank you, my epic brother Sermad.
I love you, bro. Brother. God bless you. And yeah, like we had a pretty interesting conversation the last time we were here.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah, we were looking at the present conditions and what's happening around the world.
Yeah, like so basically there's a lot of prophecies that have been mentioned before, obviously, talking about like, you know, a coming period.
Yeah.
Where certain things will be going on in the world, and it's that period that we are supposed to sort of pay attention to, because the Saviour appears, the individual who basically corrects the injustices in the world, the corruptions in the world, and more or less fixes humanity's destiny, basically. So, yeah, we touched on the fact that, you know, conflict was talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, we can start with our first slide. This is in the Bible, Matthew 24:6, and it pretty much confirms what we were talking about. It says, "You will hear of wars and rumours of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come."
Yeah.
So, wars and rumours of wars. Now, that's basically, essentially, since World War II, we've basically been seeing one conflict or another in some part of the world. And there's usually some kind of let's call it like theory as to why the war is happening, or, you know, like there's some kind of like discussion about it. There's always like this unknown quantity, this unknown sort of like link between everything. And
I mean, it's due to these wars that we have this era of instability.
Yeah,
in the whole world.
Massive era of instability. Like we've got economic, we've got political, we've got like social. You name it, man. Like it is a, like, well said actually. Like it is a really apt word for it. It is a massive period of instability. So basically, if we were to continue with that slide, we'll see like what, you know, like obviously how relevant that all is. So let's go to our next one. Again, this is a continuation of that verse in the Bible. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. That second part, I think we're going to go into tomorrow. The famines and earthquakes in various places. But for now, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Now, that, we've definitely seen that.
We have.
Like, you know, like at least in the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, look at the conflicts that are happening even now. I mean, many of them, they have their roots, like 50 years ago they started. I mean, especially the Palestinian problem. It's a problem that I think we both grew up listening to. And we're in our 50s now, and there isn't a solution. No one's actually brought out a solution. But I remember the first time I heard of a solution that actually resonated, I think with all of us, was that when A-Sadiq from Peace made that episode
Yeah,
where he gave the ultimate solution, and he gave it from actually the Bible, the scriptures themselves, and he told them that, why don't you do what the Prophet Elijah was instructed to do?
Yeah, literally.
And the thing is, I mean, it's there, it's open, and you can test it. Yeah, and it will actually prove a lot of things, because if nothing happens, if nothing happens, then neither the Muslims have to worry about anything, nor the Jews, because they're both. That means, status quo means that God doesn't exist. Na'uzubillah.
Right. Yeah. So this is the thing. Like, it's such a perfect solution to such a long-standing conflict, and it literally does resonate with both sides, because both sides proclaim themselves to be sort of connected to God, and therefore, if they both believe in this God supporting them, then this solution would be the perfect kind of, like, basically they both have nothing to lose.
I mean, if the Jews win, then we all become Jews.
What I mean is, they don't have anything to lose by trying this solution.
Absolutely nothing.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, if like you said, both sides aren't given a sort of definitive answer, then neither side has God with them.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So now okay, in sort of retrospect, here we have those two verses from the Bible, but there's also mentions of, like, and by the way, this is just like, you know, a quick kind of like quote, let's say, from the Bible. There are other quotes that are relevant to this topic, but when we look in Islam, we find, okay, I've gone to Sahih Bukhari, and I found the following narration from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and aptly this is in the book of Afflictions and the End of the World. And this is hadith number 7121. Allah's Messenger, this is from Abu Huraira, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him and his family, said, the hour will not be established till two big groups fight each other, whereupon there will be a great number of casualties on both sides, and they will be following one and the same religious doctrine. If we carry on, it says, till about 30 Dajjals, liars, appear, and each one of them will claim that he is Allah's messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, till the religious knowledge is taken away by the death of religious scholars. Earthquakes will increase in number, time will pass quickly, afflictions will appear, al-harj, i.e. killing, will increase, till wealth will be in abundance, etc., etc. It's a long narration, so yeah, like, if anyone's interested in knowing the full context of it all, do feel free to research it yourselves. For us today, the relevance is the first part, and it is in particular in reference to, obviously, two sides fighting a war but having the same religious doctrine. Now, A-Sadiq, from him is peace, is the first man to refer to obviously the idea that democracy is a religion. Now, when we look in the world today and we see the two sides that are vying for control, right, as in they are trying to be in charge of the world and they are at loggerheads with each other, what do we find as their doctrine?
Democracy.
Subhanallah.
We the people.
Right? Okay, so that is a very, very specific description that only, like, you would only be able to decipher if you actually understood the context and knew exactly what the terms mean. Like, for example, having the same religious sort of like doctrine, that literally means that there is something that is overriding that they run their lives by, And in today's world, we know it's democracy based on what A-Sadiq, from him his peace, has revealed.
Yeah.
By terming democracy a new religion, right, he's literally crossed T's and dotted the I's, right? Yeah. He's made things very, very clear.
Yeah.
You know
I mean, democracy puts the control within the hands of the people.
Of course it does.
And
it's that control which has basically gone on for, the last...
but the scary bit is the control's in the hands of fallible people.
Yeah, exactly.
And history shows that people are not really very good at choosing their own leaders.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a human can lack basic common sense.
For sure.
Due to his emotions.
Yeah.
He'll make a decision based on emotions but not on common sense.
Of course. And
for example, the example that I remember A-Sadiq from his piece gave was when the Jews were asked by Pontius Pilate, who do you want to free? And instead of choosing their Messiah, they chose the murderer Barabbas.
Exactly.
So, and have you seen how this sunnah is always getting repeated?
Of course.
Every time a leader's been chosen, it's usually the worst person you can choose.
Yeah.
But then A-Sadiq from his piece, he once said, he goes, a leader is a reflection, of its people.
Of course.
So whatever the level or the conscious level of the people is, what their intentions are, they will always choose a leader according to that. So if you look at a leader, and the leader is always a reflection of what level the society is at that time.
Of course, yeah. And this is the sort of, I would call it a shameful kind of part, that the people don't actually learn from their mistakes. They don't actually learn from the past. They don't see
No, they don't.
By taking this control into their own hands and by electing the person to be in charge on their understanding of what's, righteous and what's, decent, they they set themselves up to fall all the time.
But to tell you the truth, even this choice of the people, it's an actual illusion that is not really, it's not in their hands really. It's made to appear that they're actually choosing the person, but there is always this select group of people that does the choosing really.
Well, we know from what A-Sadiq from him his piece has revealed to us, that there's in reality only two camps.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the camp of the light, the righteous, the good, those who are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the camp that is ruled by the appointee of God, the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for the people. And then you have the other camp, which is the darkness, the deception, the sort of, to summarize, those who are put in power by Satan.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you've got these two opposing forces, right, vying for control over the world.
Yeah.
But not to confuse our audience, what we are seeing today in terms of a world war is not this battle between light and darkness.
No.
Right?
No.
What we're seeing today is orchestrated by Satan, essentially, to sort of bring about the destruction of mankind.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And why do we say that? Because, well, both sides, right, like, for example, right now, very, like, this specific moment, we have, like A-Sadiq from him his piece said, we have a country which proclaims itself to be Christian, and we have another country which proclaims itself to be Christian, and they're both fighting each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're fighting each other on a scale that's kind of like, we're literally approaching the beginnings of World War.
Yeah, I mean, this time period is aligning up absolutely with what prophecies mention would happen in the end times. There'll be such. That's why we're talking about this.
Yeah,
because the prophecies in Scripture are absolutely relevant now.
Of course.
Yeah, they haven't been this relevant in the past, and they are now. And we're trying to point these things out for people to like reflect.
Well, to confirm what we're saying about everything going back to just after World War II, I mean, like the reason I've referred to like after World War II is to show just like how things have intensified, right, in terms of conflicts, like related to geopolitics over the last like 70, 80 years, right? So if we can bring up our next slide, and this is a confirmation of the idea of wars and rumours of wars and nation rising against nation, etc. So we have, after World War II, we have the 1950s, and in the 50s we had a 3-year Korean War. Yeah. Literally North and South Korea, with basically the country now being divided. You have communist North Korea, and you have capitalist, essentially, South Korea. And then you have the Vietnam War, which was an 8-year war. And that's between the French colonial forces and the Viet Minh. Then you have the Algerian War of Independence in 1954 to 1962. That's another 8-year war. Again, France and Algerian independence movements. France was quite active with wars.
Yes.
That seems to have calmed down a little, but not 100%. In the 60s, the US got involved in Vietnam, and that was a 20-year war, 20-year conflict. But again, like the difference is the 50s, now we're in the 60s, you know, so this became like over a whole decade, man. Like there's 2 decades exactly, right? Then we have the Laotian War, Civil War. Again, this time it's a 16-year war, conflict involving royalist forces from Pathet Lao communists. Next slide, we've got again the 70s, Bangladesh Liberation War. 1971, a conflict leading to the independence of Bangladesh from Pakistan, both Muslim countries. Then you have the Yom Kippur War, 1973, Arab states versus Israel. And again, that was a very bloody war. Then you have the Cambodian Civil War, 1967 to 75. Again, 8 years. It's funny, there's a lot of 8-year wars.
There's a lot of 8-year wars, isn't
it? Then 1980s, you've got the Iraq-Iran War, another 8-year war, 1980 to 1988.
Another 8-year war.
Right. Then you've got a 10-year war, the Soviet-Afghan War, where the Afghanis, the Mujahideen fighters, were fighting against the Soviet forces. And the Afghanis were obviously, this is part of the classified documents, were actually funded by the US in order to bring about the sort of quagmire that the Soviets had to face with the Afghanis. Yeah. So that's that. Then you have the 1990s. You have the Gulf War, conflict following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. Now, this was a very historic moment, because in this war, Saudi Arabia allowed access to its lands by the United States.
Yeah, one Muslim country gave permission for another Muslim country to be bombed from its
soil.
Yeah, basically.
Right, by a foreign body.
Yeah, by a foreign...
so it wasn't their own military that was actually carrying out the bombing of Iraq.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. Yugoslav Wars, 1991 to 2001, 10-year war, resulting in the breakup of Yugoslavia. Then you have, that's in Europe, obviously. Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide of 1994. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember.
There were movies made about that immediately after as well.
Yeah.
It was obviously a civil war, and yeah, that was quite tragic. And then there was a lot of barbaric kind of scenes coming out of that war.
Yeah, it was very cruel.
Yeah, and then we move into the 2000s. So we've got the Second Congo War involving multiple African nations. Africa's World War, that was the nickname given to it. Again, 1998 to 2003, 5 years this time. And then we have the Afghanistan War, which, yeah, that went on for a good 20-odd years, 20, 25 years, right? And again, like apparently, what's his name again? Osama bin Laden was hiding in Afghanistan, being part of the Mujahideen. So he justified the Americans, like, you know, going to war with Afghanistan, him being there, and obviously the Taliban supporting him. Yeah. So that conflict went on for a very long time, and then after, like, the next thing we've got is the Iraq War, which was this one's another 8-year war, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
hilarious.
It's hilarious, isn't it? It's like
US-led invasion of Iraq to topple Saddam Hussein, based on the idea that Saddam Hussein was harboring and planning to use weapons of mass destruction. 2010s, next decade, we've got the Syrian civil war. This is still ongoing, and we recently had the toppling of the regime there, the Assad regime. And it's still in a form of conflict right now, where there's a lot of ethnic cleansing going on. And we've got the Yemeni civil war, which again is still ongoing, where we've got the Houthi rebels fighting against the Yemeni government, with regional implications. After that, that's from 2014 to today. And we've got another one, which again started in 2014 and is still ongoing. So that's 11 years, man. Yeah. Libyan civil war after the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. I remember they'd caught him, and they were just like, he was on the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah, I remember.
And they were beating him and all kinds of stuff, man. And I remember at the time thinking, what the hell is going on? You know, but having said that, like, we now know exactly why that happened. And, who he actually is. But anyway, moving into the 2020s. Wow. This is the current decade. And so far, we've got the Tigray War, conflict in Ethiopia, involving Tigray People's Liberation Front and the Ethiopian Federal Forces. So that's an ongoing conflict. And again, like, it's not clear what the underlying reasons are.
Right? They're never clear, because there's so much propaganda going on that you don't really understand who's to blame, really.
For sure, bro. And here's the last one. This is the more relevant conflict, which has been a lot in the press. For obvious reasons. We've got Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is 2022 till now. I remember it started in 2014. Yeah, actually.
Yeah, it did actually.
Right?
Yeah, but it wasn't really in the mainstream news. Exactly. It wasn't really talked about.
Yeah, and basically it became more and more like kind of sucking in of like weaponry and funding and all kinds of things, and that basically became what the mainstream was talking about all the time. And this conflict is still ongoing, and it's like there's now there's rumors that this will be why we have our world war.
Yes, it could be that trigger point.
Literally.
But the thing is, while I was looking at that list, I was thinking, oh my God, if you didn't present that list, I actually didn't know most of these conflicts were going on. I mean, we know about world wars. We know about like the Vietnam War. We know about a few of the wars that happened. We know about the Gulf War. But that just makes like 5 or 6 that are in my memory. But I think you listed like over 20 there.
Easily. Like and then by the way, that's just like the more prominent kind of wars. There's a lot of other wars that aren't mentioned there at all.
Not mentioned. So
like Somalia's war. You remember that?
Yeah.
So basically the point is, right, there's been wars and rumours of wars for at least from that list there, at least
70 years, 80 years.
At least 7 or 8 decades.
Yeah.
And it's not dying down.
No, it's just getting worse. It's escalating.
There's not been a period of peace.
Yeah. I mean, people have to think, and wars are not just rifles and bullets and bombs. There's many ways of waging war in the modern times.
For sure.
For example, look at what's going on now. We have massive trade wars that are going on. Yeah, and these trade wars are literally bringing those economies to their knees.
Yeah. Like right now, as you've just said that, there's now like rhetoric surrounding what obviously the American political sort of the American political body right now that's taken over since the election of Donald Trump has basically triggered a sort of tariff war.
Yeah.
And what that's done is it's caused hyperinflation in the US.
Yeah.
And this is the scary part, and there's a lot of rhetoric surrounding this. The stock markets are starting to be affected, like really, really drastically.
Yeah, there's like trillions and trillions of dollars that are being wiped from economies in like days. Literally. Within hours, I think.
Right. Yeah. So on that basis, you can see like how obviously that's going to have a negative impact on people's lives. Yeah. And it can also be a very big incentive for escalation to outright war, like full-on world war.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So all of this rhetoric surrounding the, we've got nuclear weapons, you've got nuclear weapons, we can engage in conflict on that level. And then there's the untested technologies that they're, constantly developing, which they find the appropriate place to test them being obviously conflict situations.
Yeah, conflict. This is what's so scary. And now you have all these weapons.
Right.
Yeah, you have all these
new technologies,
and you see this escalation that's happening in it. But the other thing is what's dangerous. All these weapons are in the hands of very corrupt people.
Of course.
Be they corruption in religion or even in politics.
Well, I'll add to what you're saying, right? There's no reason at all why one person who is involved in the decision-making process has shares in this company here that manufactures this weapon and decides and influences the decision to go to war and specifically use this weapon in a war situation.
Yeah.
We saw that in the Iraq war. And I don't want to talk names, but there is a very specific name that was in connection with the sort of political ruling body, let's say. And this person had very, very big interests in sort of multinational corporations and corporations that would like definitely gain contracts once the conflict had arisen, so the point is like
there's financial incentives.
Exactly, there's all kinds of there's all kinds of kickbacks, there's all kinds of like under the table deals going on, and there's always some person benefiting from one conflict or another.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Just follow where the money is and you'll know what's happening, what the intention is.
That's the big indicator, isn't it?
Yeah.
Qui bono, who benefits, right? So now that we've got that, on the table, right? There's nothing new under the sun.
Absolutely not.
So there's no reason why all this cannot be repeated.
Yeah.
Right, and we saw like A-Sadiq from his piece referred to a document that was released by the United States government as a sort of declassified, classified document, and this document is known as the Northwood Documents, and it refers to a plan, right, to engage Cuba in a war over some kind of like attacks on US assets, let's call them, whether it's like military bases or like actual attacks in US cities, etc. And
a false flag.
A false flag because obviously they were orchestrated to look like real attacks.
The thing is, why do we say that? We say that because it's like the boy who cried wolf.
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly.
So we've seen this many times, and that's why it's like, oh yeah, it's another false flag.
Yeah, it's quite tragic.
It's quite tragic. It's like someone that lies so much that one day, if he does even tell the truth, that's his punishment. No one listens to him.
Right, and like this is the unfortunate thing. In this case, we're talking about a lie that's affecting so many millions of people.
Yeah.
Right, and those people, whatever that, like whether that lie is believed or not, right? These people are like these millions of people are associated with the lie.
Yeah.
Meaning that, okay, so in this case, we can say that the United States is viewed as a liar because they basically declared something that wasn't true, and like, for example, the Iraq War.
And when we're talking about the United States, we're talking about certain governmental people.
Yeah.
Not the public. We're not talking about the public. We're talking about the
people
government.
In power,
the people in power.
Right. But this is what I'm trying to say. Like, basically, the Iraq War, for example, right, was waged on a false premise, right? And it was like, basically, millions of people died.
Yeah.
Right. We've got, we still have, by the way, a big problem with Iraq War veterans.
Yeah.
Right. And the like basically their stories are all documented in, you know, in various parts of the press, but not made that big a fuss over, so that
they're not publicized.
Exactly. So that they like basically the like the same thing can be repeated again.
Yeah.
Right. And in order to not discourage people enlisting and becoming part of the, you know, the military. Yeah. So these are millions of people being affected, and the view, right? This is the other part. The view that the other parts of the world have of America and therefore Americans is that basically American people supported their government to go to war. Therefore, these people are either stupid or they've obviously, you know, they're just like their government. You know, like
I don't think that people actually realize this, the actual heaviness of voting.
Of course, exactly.
The responsibility that I think people just listen to the campaigns. Yeah. Listen to the rhetoric, listen to the promises, and based on those, basing that on their own lives and how they wish their lives to go in a certain direction, they actually go and cast these votes for these people, and they later on find out they're actually empty promises. But the thing is, it doesn't finish there. The responsibility upon you is not over. The thing is, when that leader goes out and does anything that is very oppressive or unjust, that crime is shared by the people that put that person into power.
Yeah, and the reason for that is you basically showed him support. You basically pushed him up and like gave him that power, gave him that authority.
Yeah.
So when he's taken a decision or like that leader's done something, and it's a like a form of tyranny or a form of oppression or an injustice, then like the blood that's spilled from it or whatever, like injustice that's carried out in the world, whatever crime that's committed, then you've been a part of that.
You're a partner in it.
Put him in that position of power, position of authority to carry out these, whatever they may be, atrocities or what have you. So the point is, right, that again, like you said, the people are ignorant of this fact.
They're ignorant, yes.
And it's for this very reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made very clear that only he appoints, and the reason he appoints is whoever he does put in the position of power, the responsibility falls on God, not the people.
Not the people, yes.
Right? So if that individual, whoever he may be, if that individual that is appointed by God was to carry out some kind of like injustice or so on, God appointing him would put the responsibility back on God. It wouldn't fall upon the people. And it's impossible for God to be unjust.
Impossible, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, in that respect, like the only salvation humanity really has, right, is to turn back to God. And we're starting to see that.
Yeah.
We're starting to see like the people like looking for that religious leader, that leader who basically displays the righteous characteristics of somebody who fears God, right? And talks in the name of God, and basically sort of uses the idea that God is with him, right? And that's going to play an even bigger significance over the next coming period.
And A-Sadiq from his piece is demonstrated through his lectures, episodes, by pointing out all these signs.
Yeah.
And the wars and the rumours, the wars are just one part of those signs.
Exactly.
That actually we're living in the age of the rise of the Imam, because everything is matching perfectly.
Yeah.
And if you go by the wars, like you presented that list, I mean, it's undoubtable that there is not a decade where there's not a few conflicts that are happening.
Sure. And here's the other thing to add to that. Like if we saw basically we saw in the narration that from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that there will be two sides that have a shared sort of essentially doctrine, right? Religious kind of belief, right? And that they will have a big conflict, a big fight, and there will be big losses, like as in loss of life. Now, two sides being sort of like basically two sides fighting in a big conflict. We've seen that twice before, right? We saw it in World War I, we saw it in World War II, right? But there wasn't a shared doctrine back then, was there? Like there was like, kingdoms versus like...
It was a struggle to become a superpower for world domination.
Essentially. And it was like basically what we saw after World War I was the establishment of something called the League of Nations.
Yes.
Right, which basically was an organization, a body, right, which essentially dictated how the affairs and conducts of nations were to be. Yeah. And then after that failed, we saw another conflict arise in Europe, and this time it involved the Nazi ideology. Yeah. And we saw the idea of fighting for freedom, right? And so these two ideologies were not the same, right? So the religious kind of doctrine essentially was not the same. Yeah. And again, that conflict was a global conflict. It spread all over the world. And the result after this war was the establishment of something we know today as the United Nations. Yeah. Right? And again, the role of the United Nations is essentially to police and conduct the affairs of the multiple nations around the world, and to essentially sort of govern them, right? So, as a result of this conflict, right, we saw some form of order, right? And now today we're seeing tensions within the United Nations, especially amongst what they call the Security Council, right? Members of the Security Council, where you've got like certain countries which are permanent members, and you've got a rotating kind of like, like members that change every year. And basically within the permanent members there are tensions. Yeah. They don't agree on things. There's sort of like disagreements on various issues, global issues, and that all plays out how in geopolitics.
In geopolitics,
right?
yeah.
And what we see today as the build-up to this new global conflict, right? Now, the one thing that we've not touched upon, which is a major sort of aspect of all this conflict, right? We briefly mentioned it, but not fully, is how finance plays into it all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, you can't have a war without money, right?
Yeah.
And that money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And what we see is basically money is created by what we know as the banks.
Yeah.
And what nations have, countries have, are central banks. And what, like, basically what the system that used to be before the establishment of central banks was the system of, like, gold.
Yeah,
basically.
the gold standard, yes.
Right. So that was how it evolved. It became the gold standard just before the sort of establishment of the, obviously, international banking system. But the fact or the point of mentioning this was, whereas previously gold was used as a sort of funder of war, today it's cash, it's money, it's like, you know, something that's printed in a bank, right? And that obviously has a big impact on things, and the people who are in control of these institutions, right, obviously have a very, very significant role to play when it comes to the decisions that are made. Yeah.
Meaning there's a shared responsibility.
Right.
Yeah, with everyone. It's not just the leader.
Yeah.
It's the people that support the leader. Yeah. I mean, if it's financially or which other way they support him, they are all part of the problem.
And to add to that, to like pinpoint the actual point in relevance here. So you've got this class system as well, which ties into everything, right? You've got those who are the political elite, those who basically have the power to make the decisions that affect the masses, and they are all from a very specific social class. They are from a very specific kind of background, and they have access to means that the majority have nowhere near. Yeah. Any kind of access that they have, right? Whether it's resource, whether it's sort of wealth, whether it's sort of influence, whether you name it, like education, all sorts. So they obviously have the world in their hands. They have no authority from God.
From God at all, yeah.
Right? And they are the likes of the likes of the billionaires that we see, you know, holding these crazy long, like 6-month parties.
Yeah, basically they're holding the whole of humanity to ransom.
Exactly.
That's what's happened. I mean, they've taken all their wealth, and now the thing is, what do the people do? They have to, like, I mean, unfortunately, look up to the rich, and the thing is, the rich are not really that generous. They don't really care about them.
Not at all.
Yeah. Even when they're doing all their charitable works, and it's not really charitable works. Yeah, it's always just tax evasion or something. It's just a whole mess, my brother.
Of course it is. The point was that these people are the ones who basically make the decisions over these conflicts and wars and so on, and we see the result over the last 7-8 decades. Having said that, we have come to the end of our episode. We do have another couple of episodes associated with these topics. Yeah. And inshallah,
we will connect to other prophecies.
Bingo.
Yeah, with the this subject of the end times, so everyone gets a very clear picture. It's not just the wars, it's many other things that we will discuss and present, and the audience will see a very clear picture.
Yeah, for sure. Brother Waqar, I'd like to thank you for this epic conversation.
Thank you, my brother. It was a wonderful conversation. I love that list. You know, it brought everything into perspective.
It really does scare like the living daylights out of you if you sit and actually contemplate on it. But yeah, inshallah, we will continue tomorrow. All you out there, thank you for joining us today. Inshallah, we will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, please investigate. Don't just take our word for anything. And we will see you soon. Good night and good luck.